and who has been so welcoming to me this morning. I just feel so blessed and overjoyed to be joining you this morning. And today I'm here to share two powerful practices that will increase the flow of prosperity in your life. I know because they have proven in my life over and over and over again. So I'll start with a story about an immigrant, a Cuban refugee, in fact, who grew up in poverty in the inner city of Miami, struggled with English as a second language, but went on to train as a physician in the Navy and Mayo Clinic. He now owns and operates a holistic medicine clinic that is disrupting the way that healthcare is delivered in your neighboring state of Oregon. But that's not what he considers the manifestation of his prosperity. Recently, he looked at me and said, "The best thing I ever attracted in my life is you." Okay, is this working? Is this working? There we go. There we go. So seriously, I learned everything I know about manifesting from my husband. When we were newlyweds with a growing family in medical school, he said, "I'm going to buy you a house with a pool." I said, yeah, right. We have no income. We're taking out student loans. Well, before Christmas that year, we had moved into a house with a pool. Then when the Navy took us to Florida, he said, "I'm going to buy waterfront property." Again, I'm like, we don't have a down payment. How are you going to do that? Sure enough, 3 weeks before I arrived with the children, he had bought a house on a small lake in Florida. And then we moved to Oregon, and he manifested a beautiful house on a mountainside with forest views. You get the idea. You know, he gets this idea and it comes out into this three-dimensional world. And that's what we're going to talk about. What is that metaphysical process by which we manifest our ideas in the world, okay? And then by extension, anything that you can dream can come true, right? Okay, so all of this is to say that I have witnessed this power of prosperity consciousness long before unity studies were anywhere in my mind, okay? My husband claimed, as Jesus taught us, that he is worthy, wealthy, well, and whole. That's true for you, and you, and you. Everyone. It's true for all of us. And I feel blessed to be here sharing that message with you today. So I invite you to take a moment to consider that money in and of itself has no power. It's a currency of your life energy. It's a currency by which you make transactions in this three-dimensional world. Now, I'm sure you have feelings about how much you want to have and how you're going to spend it. But you acquire it by spending your life energy, and where and how you send it back out into the world indicates your values. And sometimes the appearance of lack of money brings a feeling of fear or insecurity. And that's what I was expressing when my husband planned to buy the houses. I was like, no, that can't happen. Insecure about it. But the truth, with a capital T, is that in the oneness, that is unity's first principle, and we just affirmed that here, the ground of being, in that truth, there is no lack. All of the abundance of the universe is you. You must remove the obstacles to your own good in order to experience it. Jesus said, "Your Father delights in giving you the kingdom." So I'm here to remind you, as my husband reminded me, that you are worthy, wealthy, well, and whole. As Valentine's Day approaches, I'm reminded of a story. So there's this couple out on their Valentine's Day date. They've been married a while, and this is their annual ritual that at least this once a year, they put on their best outfit and they go out to a fancy restaurant, okay? So they're sitting there, and she's gazing at her man with loving eyes, and he even bothered to shave for the occasion. So she's reaching across the table, looking at him lovingly, and she says, "Say something that will get my heart racing." He meets her gaze and says, "I forgot my wallet." So now, setting aside this societal expectation that the man is in charge of the money, and forgive me for using a heteronormative couple in this example, but your reaction and relation to that joke can give you some clues about what money represents in your life. How did you feel? Were you nervous for them? Were you getting that insecurity? Okay. Were you wondering, did she bring her wallet? Is she an empowered woman? Did you feel sorry and embarrassed for him? Right? Did he lose his power in that moment? So that's giving us some clues about where we stand about money. And studies show that the top things couples argue about are children and money. Who can relate? Who can relate? Anybody know that? Okay. Well, children are another way that abundance manifests in our lives. We're going to focus on money today because it's clearly one of the top stressors in modern life. But relationship expert John Gottman writes that money is often symbolic of deeper emotional needs, like feeling safe or cared for, or a sense of importance. And I invite you to take a photo of this slide and do some further growth work. Yeah, at church, we're actually telling you to take your phones out. But this is a good one for further growth work. So when you identify with this sense of scarcity or lack around your emotional need, it may show up in your life as money troubles. And that happens because you forget who you truly are. You're a divine being, worthy, wealthy, well, and whole. Say that with me. Worthy, wealthy, well, and whole. Okay. We're going to practice that a couple times through this. Now, Unity author Eric Butterworth wrote, "The whole universe is on your side. When you get yourself centered in the universal flow, you become synchronized with this divine bias for good. Nothing is against you. If there's only one, there's only oneness. What is there to oppose you? Without separation, there is nothing that can be against you." Let that sink in. And I invite you to consider what limiting thoughts you may be carrying. Is there a situation where you're just like, well, what can I do about it? Or they did it to me. Or I don't have, fill in your blank. I don't have money. I don't have skill. I don't have time. Those are limiting beliefs. I can relate. Unity's third principle reminds us that our thoughts create our experience. So what are you creating? What are you creating for yourself? Are you feeling worthy, wealthy, well, and whole? Not when you're having those thoughts. But Pope Francis said, to be happy is to stop feeling like a victim and become the author of your own fate. How powerful is that if you know that you're the author of your own fate? Got to start writing the story then, right? So how can you prepare to receive the prosperity that's already there? Well, there's two main tools. First, forgiveness in order to remove those obstacles. And then, when the channel is clear, we can speak affirmations to manifest in human experience what we want. And each of those topics is a class unto itself. So we're just going to have some highlights here today. And I invite you to join this afternoon's play shop and the upcoming class to learn more and to put these into practice. So first, let's talk about forgiveness. And it's time to consider what money represents to you. What's your history with money? Or is there some other story that you don't see relates to money? Some story in the past that stands between you and your good? Rosemary Fillmore Rhea, the granddaughter of Unity's co-founders, wrote, "The first step in freeing ourselves from our painful yesterdays is to forgive ourselves. When we look at ourselves through the eyes of love, we see that every experience, every person has been a part of our soul's unfoldment. Everyone is worthy, wealthy, well, and whole. And consider that the past is false, because the present moment is all that we have. Forgiveness is about replacing the false with the true, and the only truth is God. And God is love. So forgiveness is about giving love where there was hurt or resentment. Now, it's not about changing the other person, and it doesn't erase the history. Rather, forgiveness unburdens you from it. Joseph's words to his brothers in the Old Testament, his brothers who had sold him into slavery, when they reunited decades later, Joseph said to them, "What you thought was evil, God meant for good." So this goes to that point that every person has been a part of your soul's unfoldment. Forgive and recognize that everyone is, say it with me, worthy, wealthy, well, and whole. So now, once we've opened the channel for the divine flow through forgiveness, it's time to direct it, shape it with the energy of your thoughts and your words. Think about Play-Doh, molding it, shaping it. We're going to do that with our thoughts and our words, the energy of our thoughts and our words, okay? And the way to do that is to practice our affirmations and denials. Boldly claim your divine birthright. Deny scarcity and lack. Don't let it linger. Don't let any doubts linger. Who knows the story of the prodigal son? Anybody familiar with that story? Okay, almost everybody. Okay. So Jesus told this story of a young man who squandered his inheritance. And he wasn't feeling worthy. So he went and he worked for a pig farmer. And in Jewish tradition, that is like as low as you can get. That's very unclean. Now, eventually, he realized his mistake, and he forgave himself and returned to his father. His father was so happy to see him. He kissed him and he lavished him with riches. So can you see these prosperity tools at work? He realigned himself with the divine flow through practicing forgiveness of himself. And then he affirmed and he demonstrated that he wanted to return home. He claimed his birthright. And he received a warm welcome. The Father was happy to give him the kingdom. Okay? Now we'll share a few affirmations from Unity author Catherine Ponder. This is for us to get some practice of feeling the power of affirmations. I'm going to invite you to speak these with me and see how they're resonating with you. Okay? So the first one, I am a radiant child of God. My mind, body, and affairs now express his radiant perfection. Just let that percolate. Let that one percolate. Radiant perfection. All right, let's move on to the next one with even more zeal. Nothing can defeat me. I give thanks for the perfect, immediate, right results. I rejoice that I am now successful in all my ways. Are we feeling it? Is it building? All right, now this one, we're really get that zeal, get that fire going, all right? Ready? I am an irresistible magnet with the power to attract unto myself everything that I divinely desire, according to the thoughts, feelings, and mental pictures I constantly entertain and radiate. I feel it. I feel it. It's getting warm in here. Actually, it's getting hot in here. All right. Now that we have affirmed and we have faith that we are receiving in this moment, we're going to talk about the law of circulation, because you got to keep it going. You got to keep that energy flowing. So spiritual writer Eckhart Tolle says, acknowledging the good you already have in your life is the foundation for all abundance. Do you want to experience life to the fullest? Acknowledge God as the source of your supply. Trust that all your needs are being met on time and in full, and express gratitude. All right? Anybody ever been in that situation like, ooh, I need another $50 by Friday. I don't know where it's coming from. All right? That's the trust that it's being met on time and in full, right? Okay. So activating the power of faith that all your needs are met. We're going to put it back into circulation. The law of circulation states that giving and receiving are two aspects of a prosperity law that both must be exercised if we're to release the flow of abundant good in our consciousness. So now I'm going to talk about my husband again, because I just love to talk about him. So this was more than a decade ago, and I was a stay-at-home mother of 3 kids. My husband was a really burnt-out physician. He'd been practicing in a group practice. And he was at a crossroads in his career where he was either going to buy into that practice and essentially sign on for the rest of his working life onto that treadmill of, or rather the revolving door of patient care that was that big group practice, or he could strike out on his own, practice the way he wanted to practice holistic medicine. And of course, with him being the sole source of our income in this 3-dimensional world, there was a lot of insecurity around, well, what would that mean if he left that group practice? What it meant was a minimum of 3 months without any income for our family and 3 kids to provide for. We had just bought a house, so we had no savings in the bank at that point. But it was now or never, really. Or at least it would be quite a while if we didn't do it at that point. And as you heard in the intro, I have a business background. So I said, yeah, we can do this. Yeah, we can do this. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah, we can do this. All right. So I went about doing all the back-end stuff of registering a business and credentialing with all the insurance companies and all that stuff that gets done in the back office there, right? And we open, and he starts seeing patients, and, I'm looking at the calendar okay, when is this first check going to come? 6 weeks before I really expected it to, an envelope came from one of the local insurance companies. And I opened it, and I started jumping up and down. I'm jumping up and down. He came out of the office, and he's like, What are you so excited about? I'm like, we got paid! And he says, wait, why are you so happy? Like, wasn't this supposed to be? And I'm like, I didn't know if anything I did had worked. I had no experience, with insurance companies. Well, I had no idea, but it worked, okay? Now, mind you, during this time that we were setting up the practice, and I told you we had nothing, nothing in savings. We just had his last paycheck from the group medical practice. We continued to tithe to our local Unity community, Unity of the Valley. We continued to give our kids all the experiences that they would normally have, signing them up for summer camps and all that good stuff. Nothing changed about the way we lived our lives, because we were operating in this prosperity consciousness and having faith that all our needs were met. So we gave freely, and giving freely is the only valid kind of giving. It's an expression of love and generosity. Receiving freely and gratefully completes the law, creating that balance. I know that I am worthy, wealthy, well, and whole. Now, I quoted Vicki Robin earlier in the talk. She wrote in Your Money or Your Life that money is a representation of your life energy. And recognizing that fact is a call for us to spend, invest, and give according to your values. So take a look at your next bank statement. Where have you sent your money out into the world? Does your spending reflect your values? And if you're listening to this talk, it's a pretty good bet that spiritual growth is one of your values. So let's talk about tithing. Because tithing is a very special kind of giving. It means to give 1/10 of your supply to God. And that, giving it to God, is interpreted as where you receive your spiritual nourishment. So committing to tithing as a recognition of the divine as your partner. It's a demonstration of faith. It's an exercise of generosity. And Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore wrote in The Revealing Word that tithing brings into the consciousness a sense of divine order that is manifested in one's outer life and affairs as increased efficiency and greater prosperity. Who wants that? Who wants that? Okay. So tithing 10% historically goes back as far as Abraham in the book of Genesis, when Abraham gave 10% of the spoils of war to the priest Melchizedek. Now, I understand that your community, Unity in Lynnwood, just recently reinstated your tithing policy. Well done. That tithing policy as a community. So now I invite you as individuals, as partners in this community, to commit to tithing personally. You as an individual, empowering Unity in Lynnwood as a community then to tithe, both individually and as a community. You'll see an increase in your prosperity and your efficiency as a result of your giving, because that is the metaphysical law. And a summary of the prosperity process is diagrammed in the circle of abundance. So the stages of the cycle go through alignment, where forgiveness opens us to the flow, and then generosity, and then attracting, receiving. Attracting is your affirmations, then receiving and giving gratitude, and then the cycle begins again. We're going to explore this a lot deeper in this afternoon's play shop. So I do invite you to join us for that. But my favorite example of how this cycle works is a story about Maria, who's sitting here with us today. She inherited from her dad just the innate knowing of these principles. So, about 17 years ago, she was keen to welcome a new pup into our home after the passing of our 16-year-old Grande Dame doggie. And my husband and I decreed that we were going to wait 1 full year before inviting a new companion animal into our family. Oh, you can guess how that went, right? Kids didn't agree. And can you guess who was in alignment without obstacles and clearly speaking what she wanted to manifest? So we had a ritual of spending time with my sister in Texas every summer. And my sister, their Auntie Amy, founded an animal rescue organization. And you can guess what's coming. So Maria was giving of her time to help Auntie Amy rescue pups during our time in Texas. So she was giving, and she was in full alignment, because children just are just naturally flowing. She was in full alignment with her oneness, her birthright, acting from her generosity, and attracted Jackie O. Maria accepted the good of Jackie O and convinced Daddy that, and I quote, "She doesn't bark, she doesn't bite, she doesn't pee or poo in the house." Now, mind you, the dog was under sedation from having her spay operation. But we received Jackie O into our family, and she is now our 16-year-old Grande Dame, giving and receiving love. So I guess it wasn't 7, I guess it was 15 years ago. So it is Maria's and Jackie O's birthright and power to affirm abundance. And so it is for you. All substance of the universe is available to you because you are one with it. For in him we live and move and have our being. So I invite you to join us at this afternoon's workshop for a deeper dive into all of these concepts, and I invite you now to affirm with me, I am worthy, wealthy, well, and whole. So now let's take those powerful words into a meditation.